Greetings to you all. We are picking from where we ended in the last discussion. And remember, we're soon going to be bearings as a topic. In the last discussion, I made the introduction to bearings, whereby I say under bearings we look at the method of describing position, describing the position of one place relative to another. If you are moving from one place going to another place, which direction you take? We can talk about towns. If you are moving from one town going to another town, which direction you take? So we talk about relative positions. When we are talking about relative positions, we shall consider two or more positions. We really say positions in general, but it can be moving from one city going to another city, moving from one port going to another port, moving from one town going to another town. We just have to know which direction do I take. When describing direction, I said we shall use two methods. The cardinal approach, where we use points of the compass, then three-figure bearings, where we talk about 3 digits used, and bearings if they measure right from north as the direction. Remember, don't forget, under three-figure bearings, we look at measuring the direction in the horizontal plane. Not vertical plane, there is a confusion where we draw a compass direction and some people look at it as if it is from the vertical plane, but horizontal plane. You need to identify which direction is north and look at the turning from north to the direction where you are going. In our discussion today, I want us to look at the sketch diagrams. How can you draw a sketch diagram showing relative positions? But we shall look at positions on the same level ground. If you are talking about towns, the towns are on the same level ground. If you are talking about ports, the ports being on the same level ground, moving from one port to another port. If you are talking about islands, again islands to be considered would be on the same level ground, moving from one island going to another island. Remember, when you're measuring direction, you measure strictly from where you are coming from and look at the direction of where you are going. Now, sketch diagrams. In sketch diagrams, we are going to look at how can you show the positions on a plain paper. We shall try to look at position, then the angle which shows the direction to another place, and then the distance. On sketch diagrams, we try to look at the distances indicated in meters, in kilometers. However, when we come to accurate diagrams or scale diagrams, we shall indicate distance strictly in centimeters. To begin with, when you are drawing sketch diagrams, we need to have the knowledge of alternating angles. Talk about alternating angles. For the case of alternating angles, these ones are widely applied in sketch diagrams and accurate diagrams referring to bearings. Which ones are alternating angles? Look at a case of two parallel lines. If these ones are two parallel lines, that means they are moving exactly in the same direction. This is north, that one is north. If you happen to have a straight line going through these two parallel lines, the angle which is here should always equal to the angle that is that side. These ones are alternating angles. So when you are doing compass directions, you find there is a compass direction here, north. There is another one here. It's also showing north. If we draw a line joining these two, positions, we need to note that the angle which is here must be equal to the angle that is there. So we shall always find the case of alternating angles when you are describing positions and then the direction is taken from one position to another position, alternating the angles. Also, look at this. if I have these ones are also parallel lines. For these two parallel lines, in any case, if I have the straight line going across this, still in the same way, the angle here must be the same as that. Just like here, the one on this side will be the same as the other one. So I always try to look at alternating angles. So for the case of sketch diagrams, we are going to have two things to look at today. One, given a sketch diagram, can you describe the direction between the two, both the relative positions? Then two, we are going to look at if the direction is given, they describe for you the direction from one place to another. Can you draw a sketch diagrams? Those are the two things I want us to look at today. Drawing the sketch diagram and using the sketch diagram to find the direction. Let us start with using a sketch diagram to find the direction. If we have any two relative positions, for these two relative positions, say for instance A and B, we can look at moving from A going to B. We can also look at moving from B coming back to A. So we have two bearings or directions to tell. The bearing of A from B, and we can also talk about the bearing of B from A. How do we go about this? I want you to consider this very example. And we use it to see that we understand which concept I want you to get. If I have two positions, two towns, there is town A, there is town B. We can look at moving from A coming to B. We can actually look at moving from B going back to A. If the question is to say, set the bearing of A from B, then set the bearing of B from A. What do we have to look at? This is what we are supposed to look at. Now for this very question, if they tell you to set the bearing of A from B, what do we have to look at? The word from. If the word is saying from B, that means the angle will be measured from B. If they say bearing of B from A, the angle will now be measured from A. So where they say from is where we measure the angle from. We are now going to have two diagrams drawn to answer. Answering Roman 1, answering Roman 2. Let us start with the Roman 1. To get the solution, we shall now draw well, from B, the angle is going to be measured from B, and this should be measured in a clockwise direction, strictly clockwise direction. A person may look at this angle of 50 degrees and think that maybe the bearing or the angle is 50 degrees. But when we are dealing the three-figure bearings, we consider bearing measured from north and strictly in the clockwise direction. So we are going to look at the angle which is here. How can we get that angle? It is easy. One complete turn is 360 degrees. So if there is this balance of 50, that means we have so far moved 360 minus 50. We shall have 360 minus 50, and this one will leave us with 310 degrees. And from here, we shall have this angle as 310 degrees. So if this is 310 degrees, we shall now say that the bearing of A from B is 310 degrees. Is 310 degrees. This is when you are using the three-figure bearings. However, there is another way of stating this bearing. If you don't use the three-figure bearing, you can combine the 2 points of the compass and this angle between the line and the north, or between the right and the south. Which one is the second approach? Or we can say the bearing of A from B is face north, turn 50 degrees towards west. Face north, turn 50 degrees towards west, because west is expected in this direction. So we face north, turn 50 degrees towards west. These two bearings are giving just exactly the same answer. You may find in some textbooks where they commonly use this, but this is the same as that. Now, this is the answer to Roman 1. Bearing of A from B. We have drawn the diagram again and looked at which one is the angle in the clockwise direction. Much as they have given us 50, but we are interested in the one in the clockwise direction. Then, what about bearing of B from A? We are going to draw a diagram again, and this time have the compass direction giving us another angle. We have talked about Roman 2. In this one, bearing of B from A. From A, the angle, the compass direction is now drawn at point A, and that is north. At point A, that is north. These two are alternating angles. I began by talking about alternating angles. If this is 50, this one is definitely 50 degrees. So, having seen the 50 is the same as that. If you want to go to A, if you are going to B, but coming from A, you need to look at this. That from a point A, I can face north, and if I'm to turn in a clockwise direction, this angle can be seen. The angle which is here, okay, this angle is calculated from 180, the straight line angle is 180, minus 50 degrees. And this one gives us 130 degrees. So this angle is 130 degrees. And it will give me the bearing of B from A. Bearing of B from A. This is 130. So I can say that bearing of B from A 130 degrees. 130 degrees. And please, if not this, there is another format of setting the same bearing. Which one is that format? We can look at direction south, because the second approach, either we measure from north or from south, but the three figure bearings strictly from north. We can now say, oh, the bearing of B from A of B from A is face south. That is the south, and it turn 50 degrees towards east. 50 degrees towards east. So these two are giving us exactly the same direction. Either you measure 130 degrees from north, clockwise, this is the answer, or you measure 50 degrees from south towards east. So we now have the two answers, the answer for part 1 and the answer for part 2. These are simple tweaks. One tweak you have to identify is that of alternating angles. Then the second example we can try to talk about. Example 2. In example 2, I want us to look at this. If the line is, we're talking about point A and then point B. If it so happens that here we have north, and this is an angle of 40 degrees. Still, we can talk about describing these two relative positions by way of giving the direction. Supposing I'm moving from A going to B, that will be described as bearing of B from A. If I'm moving from B going to A, we shall describe that one as bearing of A from B. This diagram is enough for us to state which one is the bearing of B from A or the bearing of A from B. Let me write down the question and we use it to interpret those two bearings. With the diagram given, set the bearing of A from B. Then number 2, the bearing of B from A. We can answer the question by drawing another sketch diagram and identify which angle is needed. To begin with number 1, bearing of A from B. I'm going to draw the diagram again. If they say bearing of A from B, good enough, where we are seeing from B is where we have the angle. Because the moment they say from B, measure the angle from B. If they say from A, measure the angle from point A, using the compass direction. And it's now clear, from B going to A, from north, the angle is 40 degrees. So the answer will be that the bearing of A from B, this bearing bearing is supposed to be the angle of 40. But under 3 figure bearings, we make sure we use the 3 digits. So we shall say this bearing is 40 degrees. That's the bearing of A from B. But in Roman 2, where they say bearing of B from A, if they say from A, we now draw the compass direction at point A. If you draw the compass direction at point A to get the bearing of B from A, we make use of alternating angles. If this is 40, definitely this is also 40 degrees. And the bearing is given as the amount of turn clockwise from facing north. So if you want to get the bearing of B from A at point A, face north and turn in a clockwise direction. If you turn in a clockwise direction, that angle described from north will be the bearing of B from A. If you look at this, there is 180, that is straight line angle, and an addition of 40 degrees. So in all, we shall have 180 plus 40. And I can now say the bearing of B from A is, we can now try to show that we have 180 plus 40, and this one gives us 220 degrees. So the bearing of B from A is 220 degrees, while that of A from B is 40 degrees. I say if we have specific directions like northeast, southeast, southwest, we can still only use those points of the compass. But directions like 40 may not give you a specific point on the compass. We can use these angles. Look at the next example. I now have two positions. Can be 2 towns, 2 cities, whatever. But there is A, there is B. These ones are connected in such a way that this one is a straight line. The straight line may not indicate the fact that they are on the same horizontal or level surface, but in bearings, because we are supposed to measure the angle in a horizontal plane, we shall always try to look at same level ground. Look at this. If we say, set the bearing of A from B, the bearing of B from A. Now, for these ones, we can even use the points of the compass to show which the bearing of B from A and A from B. How do we go about this? We are going to have the cardinal approach first. I said the cardinal approach concerns points on the compass, that is north, east, south, west. Even in between northeast, southwest, southeast, northwest can be considered. That is the cardinal approach. We can state we are going to use the cardinal approach and the answer. Then, away from that, we shall also talk about using the 3-figure bearings. Let us try to start with it if we are to answer using the cardinal approach. where we have this is point B and that is point A. They say bearing of A from B. From B, A is east of B. How is it clear? Person can say A is east of B. That one is a clear statement, even if you not measure the angle. And I said anything which is due east will mean 90 degrees. You are going to see it for the second solution. But A is east of B. What about Roman 2? Bearing of B from A. If we are talking about from A, again, if you have to look at the same diagram, from A going to B, we take the direction west. So we can say B is west of A. Those ones we are using points of the compass. Definitely this is the east and this is the west. However, if we are to use the second approach, where this is a point B and this is a point A. In the second approach, we can describe the bearing using angles and look at which angle we take if we are going to A coming from B. Look at this. This is 90 degrees. 90 degrees. I say the angle is measured from north. That's why I'm labeling the 90 degrees. And now I can say the bearing of A from B is the bearing of A from B at point B going to A. We look at the angle from north in the clockwise direction, that is 90 degrees. We shall look at this as 90 degrees. This gives us the same direction of east. So a person who says 90 degrees would have given us the same description for the direction of east. That is Roman 1. So Roman 1, I can give this answer, I can give this. Then for Roman 2, bearing of B from A. From A going to B. We are not going to now look at the angle in anti-clockwise sense. We are going to look at the angle in the clockwise direction. That angle in the clockwise direction, we need to look at this. There is a 90 here, 90 and another 90. In a clockwise direction, we wouldn't think of the 90 here, but it will be in the anti-clockwise direction. We are supposed to measure in the clockwise direction. So we shall have 90, which is here, another 90, which is here, and another 90, which is here. So the bearing will be as a result of those three angles added. You can say the bearing of B from A is, I look at it, 90 plus the 90 and plus another 90. This one will give us 270 degrees. The 270 degrees makes the same direction as the west when we are measuring from north, that angle from north. So whenever we are answering, we take note of that, either points of the compass or we can use the three-figure bearings. We may have situations where one is north of the other. Like if a person is to say, what is the bearing of Uganda? from South Sudan. From South Sudan coming to Uganda, you need to take direction south. However, if they say, what is the bearing of South Sudan from Uganda? If you are going to South Sudan coming from Uganda, you take a north. You may look at the figure by way of stating the angle, or you can just state the point that is north, is south, is east, or is west. Now, with this one, look at this. If I'm to talk about 2 points, A and B, I can go on to state the bearing. Now this is another one for us to look at. Set the bearing of A from B, then set the bearing of B from A. One thing you have to look at is that B is south of A, and A is north of B. Those directions can be clearly interpreted and understood. If you want to use the 3 figure bearings, then you look at the second the diagram drawn again. This is point A, and here we have point B. In all cases, we look at north, east, south, west. North, this is east, west, then south. If I'm talk about A from B, A from B, if they say A from B, the angle will be measured from point B. Now, we turn in a clockwise direction. If at point B, turn in a clockwise direction, you will end up with an angle of 360 degrees. That angle will be 360 degrees. However, you will have gone back to the starting point, which is still saying, indicating 000 degrees. So the bearing of A from B is 360 degrees, or you may say is 000 degrees. Because by the time you go from the 360 degrees, you will have gone back to the starting point. That's the, if you talk about B from A, you talk about from A. Bearing B from A, now that means we are going to stand at point A and measure the angle. Point A, as seen here, angle from north towards the direction of B. This angle will make a straight line angle, and that is definitely 180. 90 plus 90 is 180. So the bearing of B from A is 180 degrees. 180 degrees. So please, whenever you have a sketch, you can use the sketch to state the direction. However, if you have the statement describing the direction, you can as well use that statement and do the sketch diagram. In our next discussion, we shall try to look at how can you draw the sketch diagram if the statement giving us the direction between relative positions is given? How can you draw a sketch diagram? In the learner's book, you will come to realize that the sketch diagrams are not covered in details. So I will update you, I will give you enough of these revision questions. There is that activity on page assist me go up, and I see the page is here. Page page 90. On page 90, Rana's book, there is that activity that you are supposed to look at. Please, if you have access to Rana's book, take time to look at that. But even if you don't have one, it is the one that you are seeing. Please let me get down and down. No, down. There. So take your time, look at that activity, you handle it in your way. I'm waiting for which one is the response. Have a nice time. We shall meet next time.